Yep, into week 3 of a 2-week series. Oh, my poppy fell off. But I've got the needle stuck into my body. It's all good. It's fine. You can hold it for me, Felix. There we go. Cheers, mate. Cool. My poppy fell off. Yeah, so 3 weeks into a 2-week series. I was only going to do this for 2 weeks, but it's now turned into a 5-weeker. So we're going to go a little deeper today, and we'll carry on over the next few weeks as well. For you guys who have missed it, you can catch it on YouTube if you want, but it doesn't matter. This one sits on its own anyway. But this whole series is based off the content of a series I done 8 years ago, which I completely stole from my favourite speaker across the pond in the States. I love this series. I took all of his content and picked it apart and thought I can use all that for my own life. And then I brought it to the church and I thought it was so good. And so we're going to do it again, repackaged in a slightly different way and up to date. So no MySpace references or anything like that today. So, basically, if you missed it, I said if you make decisions without asking this question, you will, without question, regret not asking the question. And that question that we've been looking at is, what is the wise thing for me to do? What is the wise thing for me to do? We looked on week 1 about considering in light of our past, what's the wise thing for us to do? Where I am right now in my present, and what my hopes and dreams are in the future. What is the wise thing for me to do? But we're framing this whole series around this question and coming back and asking it over and over again. And we're framing the whole series as well in this piece of scripture in Ephesians 5, 15 to 17. And we can't seem to get out of here because it's so rich. But it says this: "So then, be careful how you live. Do not be unwise, but wise, making the best use of your time." And that's what we looked at last week, is making wise choices with our time, asking ourselves, where do we need to start making deposits of time that would be wise for our present and our future? But it says, making the best use of our time. So don't be unwise, be wise, making the best use of your time, because times are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Now, who remembers on week 1, I asked you guys, who's ever done anything dumb? And everyone said yes, basically. Everyone said, yeah, I've done something dumb in my past. Some of you got a very, very long list of dumb things you've done in your past. But I'm going to slightly change the question to frame this today. It's, who's ever known the wise thing to do and then has chosen the unwise thing to do anyway? Anyone in the room? 1 or 2 in the room? Everyone? Is there anyone who doesn't? Anyone that doesn't resonate with at all? No, so we're all on board. We're all on the same page, all singing off the same hymn sheet. We are all dumb, yep? Good. Some people are nodding yes. We're all dumb, especially him next to me. All dumb. No, when we know what the wise thing to do is, and we've done the unwise thing anyway, we've done it anyway, even though we know. And the long and the short of it is, if we're honest, even if you're a super spiritual Mary Poppins Christian in here, we don't always make wise choices. And some of them wise choices are what God or even you might determine as sin, disobedience to God, missing the mark that God's best for your life. And some of them things are sin, some of them things aren't sin, but just aren't wise. And the long and short of it is that we don't always make the wise choice. And like you just admitted to me, that sometimes you know the wise thing to do. It's not that you didn't just make the wise choice. It's that you knew the wise thing and you still didn't do it anyway. And I've been there once or twice. Today, yeah, this morning. But going forward from this point, you know, I do, and I know you do really, we want to opt for wise, don't we? We want to choose wise going forward, because even though we're heaven-bound, and if you're a Christian in here, if you're a believer in Jesus Christ, and you've booked your ticket to heaven, you've got your Willy Wonka golden ticket, we still have to walk out our days on earth. We still have to walk out those days where the consequences of our decisions will play out. And so we do want to opt for wise. We even want to do it. And so this week I want to look at, if you're not wise, then what are you? If you're not wise, then what are you? Because we've all said we know the wise thing sometimes and choose not to. So what are we when we do that, or when we've done that, or when we perhaps do it in the future. And what we're going to do, we're going to look at the book of Proverbs. And the book of Proverbs is so rich, it's so cool. And I want to summarize really the whole book of Proverbs. And Solomon, who wrote Proverbs, was like the wisest man ever to live. I think even Jesus called him that. Even kings used to come and seek advice from him. He was that wise. Or a phrase that you might not have heard before, wisdomous. It's an English word. It's a real word. It's not a real word. Just like getting you guys to take it back to the States, see if we can grow the language. We're like Shakespeare. We're like coining phrases and see if we can get it to spread. But kings would seek his advice. And in the book of Proverbs, it says there's basically, when you summarize it, there's 4 different types of people. Not 4 different personality types, not going down that route today, but 4 different types of people. And the first one, a nice easy one, the wise. The wise people. People who look at the past, look at the present, look at their future, what they want for the future, and they make the wise decision, the best decision, the good decision, but the wise decision. And maybe we're that a lot of the time, some of the time. But there are 3 other categories, and I still haven't got my alarm and my button that we had in the old building, because this is going to be offensive. I quite like that. Usually I have an alarm system and the lights flash, but it's going to be offensive. But, especially if you're new, you can't get mad at me, because this is Solomon. It's all Solomon. I'm just the messenger. Don't shoot me. I'm just going to I'm summarizing what Solomon said, the wisest man ever to exist. And because if you don't opt for wisdom, if you're not opting for wisdom, you accidentally opt for something else. You're saying, I'm not going to choose that. And you said it, not me. You've done that in your past. You've chosen not to choose wisdom. But in doing so, you opt for something else, even if it's by accident. And to walk away from wisdom, to back away from wisdom, is to walk closer to something else. And I want to look at what that something else might be today. And it might just be temporary. It might just be in some little areas of your life. It's one area or these multiple areas. It might just be for a season. But I want you to think about what you're opting for when we reject wisdom. So the 3 people who Solomon would declare as not the wise group. The first one I want to talk about, and this is highly offensive. We might get kicked off YouTube for this, I'm not sure. It is the simple person. Don't nudge the person next to you. The simple person. People, oh dear, that's funny. That's Solomon. He's calling you simple. If perhaps, if you're one of these 3 categories, calling you simple. Rude, Solomon. So rude. But all this really means is a naive person, a clueless person. Well, you all got mates like it. I've got a few in the front row. But even ignorant, and that sounds like an offensive word in itself, but it's not. It's just lack of knowledge. Ignorant in an area, you don't understand or know about something. Sometimes the simple person is just ignorant about something, is naive, is clueless, or has lack of experience in a particular area or realm or decision-making process. Or, a good way to summarize it in many regards, and they're not in the room today, so I can be as offensive as I want, just young. Young people are often simple, because they have no experience in many regards. So my boy is so bright. He's so intelligent. He's so articulate. He is so intelligent. He's not wise. He thinks wrestling a Rottweiler is a wise thing to do. He thinks that's a good thing to do. Oh, look at him. He's a big dog with teeth. Let's ride him. He thinks that's a good idea. Although I do actually, that appeals to me as well. But he's just young. He's inexperienced. He lacks knowledge, subject knowledge of dog with teeth. But he's intelligent, and he thinks that's a good idea, wrestling a Rottweiler. He's not bad, he's not evil, he's not even dumb. He's just young. He just lacks experience in many areas of life, and yet we can be like that as well. I'm 40 years old. You can be 40 years old and be simple. And what I mean by that is you can lack experience or knowledge. You can be naive. You can be ignorant about certain things where you don't have access to wisdom in that area. You don't even have access to knowledge in that area, let alone the application of knowledge. And I'm not going to have time today, but if you read Proverbs 7, write that down if you're a note taker, but if you read Proverbs 7, there's a story about a young man he's walking into a really bad situation. He thinks he's going to have a good time. And on paper, it looks like maybe it is a good time. He's going out for a good night out. But it's actually, he's like an ox walking to slaughter. And what he thinks is really good is actually really bad. And if you read, you can read that story in your own time. But it's like if this was a story in EastEnders or one of your other sort of television programs and it's a plot happening, you as a viewer would be like, I know what's coming. I know what's happening. That young, stupid idiot person doesn't know what's coming. You're waiting for the do, 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 do. You know it's coming. There's a twist in the plot. Something bad's going to happen. And you as a viewer, as someone who's not naive, as someone who can see what's going on behind, can understand that this person is simple. And you're thinking, stupid boy. Some of you get really engaged with your television programs, getting angry with the characters, a stupid boy. You know, a bit like, yeah, stupid boy Pike. And as a more experienced person, you can read Proverbs 7 and think, I know where this is going. This dude is so naive, it's all going to turn out bad. And you could even tell that young man in Proverbs 7, this is what's going to happen. If you go down this route, this is bad stuff's going to happen. But he probably wouldn't listen. He probably wouldn't listen to you, just like my 11-year-old boy often doesn't listen to me. He doesn't know about any area. This thing we're talking about happens all the time where we debate things. I'm like, you haven't got a clue what you're talking about. And he won't listen. I can give him advice and he won't listen. And why? It's because if you're naive or simple or inexperienced in an area, you often feel like you know the certainty of the future. You think you know how something's going to pan out. Because you're naive, you've never had the experience, you've never had to face the consequences of them decision-making processes before to know that these are some of the bad options that might be the result of your decisions. And as you get older and more experienced, you can look at someone else's situation and say, that's not a wise thing to do. Why are you doing that, you moron? Even to your best mate. But like, what are you doing? You're a muppet. But it might be difficult for somebody to listen to that because they think they understand. They think they know. They haven't had the consequences of their decisions yet. And sometimes they have to learn through that process, but not always. And it's not your fault. If you're inexperienced in an area of work, in an area of, if you just got married, you haven't had the experience of a relationship, but all that sort of stuff. But if you're 15 or 18, it's not your fault that you don't know stuff. It's not the fault that you're, what Solomon would call you, simple. It's not your fault. It's just your inexperience. That's it. And the younger guys, the younger you are in this room, but the young guys in the pod down there, they've got a great opportunity. They can have it both ways. You know, I think back, my mother-in-law said to me just yesterday as I was going, I'm really hurting, my tummy hurts. She's like, you're not young anymore. I'm like, thank you very much. Oh, to be 18 again when I can bend down and tie my shoes without going, on the way down and up. But they can have it both ways. The younger you are in the room, and not just age, but the inexperienced in the room, the simple in the room, when you don't have access to knowledge and application of that knowledge, is you can have youth and wisdom at the same time. And all you have to do is, you have to seek wisdom, though. That's the idea, is that you have to seek wisdom. It won't come naturally. If you are simple, and I'm not just talking about intelligence, I'm talking about experience. If you're simple in an area, you don't have the knowledge, then you need to seek wisdom. You have to ask for it because it's not yet acquired. And the young people, people with kids in here who are in the pod down there in the kids' shirt, you want your kids to come to you and get wisdom from you, right? I do. I want them to come to me and draw. I want them to borrow my wisdom until they've figured it out for themselves, until they understand and can apply knowledge in their life. We need to borrow wisdom, and so young people can have their youth and have the advantage of the wisdom that comes with age. But you have to ask. And so we said right from the beginning of asking ourselves, what is the wise thing for me to do? What is the wise thing for me to do? But if you're simple, you don't know what the wise thing is for you to do in a particular area, or just because you're young, whatever the reason. And so for me, the solution for this is to actually ask someone else. You ask somebody else, what is the wise thing for me to do? Actually asking someone else, and men in here are like, I've never done that before in my life. Don't even ask for directions. Let alone ask my buddy what he thinks is the wise thing for me to do. Because that would admit to my best mate that I don't know. What is the wise thing for me to do? Actually asking someone. And we want it from our young people, don't we? Who are in a position they've got to make a decision. And you want them to make the wise decision. You wouldn't want them to guess. You'd want them to ask someone who's gone through it, who knows, who has experience, and ask, what is the wise thing for me to do? And actually ask it. And more on that next week. So maybe in some areas of your life, you are simple. Because you're the one who told me you knew the wise thing to do and didn't do it. So sometimes we can act simple even if we're not. Which brings me on to perhaps where we make some of the unwise choices in our life. If you're a little bit older in the room, Solomon would say, you're not simple, because you know the wise thing to do, and you've chosen the unwise thing to do. What you are, Solomon would say, not me, he would say, you are the fool. I wouldn't ever call you that. I wouldn't, not to your face. I wouldn't ever call you that. The fool, there's a difference between being simple and being a fool, because the fool knows and just doesn't care. The fool knows what's wise and just doesn't care, does it anyway. And just to reiterate, you are the one who told me you knew what the wise thing to do was and didn't do it. And so perhaps in some areas of your life, you have been a fool and you repeat being a fool in that area over and over again, or for a big block of time you've acted as a fool. Maybe you're being foolish in an area right now. Who knows? But the fool knows, but just doesn't care. You can ask him, don't you know that's going to hurt you? Yeah. And you're still going to do it? Yeah. It's irritating, isn't it, when it's somebody else's life? You're going to do that despite the last time that, yeah, oh, okay, yeah. So in your first marriage, it turned out like this, and you're making the same decisions. Yeah, oh, okay. You're not going to do it different this time then? No? Okay, all right. You know, everyone who invested in that company ended up with, yeah, I know, but, okay. See, a fool knows, but they just don't care. You know where it's going to lead, but you're going to do it anyway. Yeah. Is that okay with you? It's my life. Go away. Do one. If you do that, and we have done that because you've admitted it, Solomon says you're a fool. Solomon would say that I'm a fool. And some of you in here might say, yeah, I am a fool. Yeah, and I don't care. And you won't, because you're a fool in that area. You might even say, my wife tells me I'm a fool all the time. In fact, that's the one thing we agree upon. Solomon, the wisest man, wrote these words in Proverbs. It says this, as a dog returns to his vomit, so a fool repeats their folly. A fool repeats their folly, knowing what the wise thing to do and not doing it anyway, but then repeating that over and over again like a dog returning to its own vomit. What a picture to paint. Stay for the cafe afterwards. But that's what a fool's like, going back over and over again, even though they know, and they just don't care. I know I've been there hundreds of times in my past, particularly before I was a Christian, repeating the same mistake, even though I knew it was dumb, not the wise thing to do. And yet we can do it in our Christian walk, and we justify the reasons why we do it in that area. But last time you did that, and you're still going to do it? Yep. In fact, it says in Proverbs, he wrote in Proverbs 10:23 that a fool finds pleasure in wicked schemes. A fool finds pleasure in wicked schemes. That a fool can have fun in an area when they're doing something that they know is not wise and good. And I can think of hundreds of examples where I had a great time in my past, and it was not a wise thing to do. Yeah, but it was fun. Last time it took you 3 weeks to recover. Yeah, but it was fun. He's just like your old boyfriend, and you're still going to, yeah, but it's fun. See, a fool knows the difference between right and wrong, knows the difference between wise and unwise, but just doesn't care. And a fool even knows, I think, the consequences of doing the unwise thing. Unlike the simple person or the naive or the inexperienced, they don't know what the consequences are. They're making decisions and then going afterwards, oh, I didn't know that was going to be the result. A fool knows the consequences and still makes the decision anyway. Doesn't feel like a strong enough word actually now, fool. You know, if you've got 9 points on your license and you're still speeding, you're foolish. 3 more pints and that's gone. If you've had a pregnancy scare over and over from one-night stands and you carry on putting yourself in that position, Solomon would say, you're a fool. What are you doing? If we have habits of slowly destroying our bodies through the choices we make over and over again, despite knowing the consequences, Solomon might say, you're a fool. And you might think, this is offensive, Phil. Phil, you can't say this. I'm not coming back to this church. Church sermons are supposed to be uplifting to make me feel good for the rest of the week so I can get through my horrible job. I'm not coming back to this church. I think you will come back. It's just you'll come back under circumstances that are unwanted. Because there's not much of a cure to being a fool. The cure of being a fool. Well, let's back it up. The cure for being simple is really, really simple. The cure for being simple is effectively time. Because all you have to do is get experience. Over time, you might be simple, you might be naive, you might be inexperienced. The cure for that, in gaining wisdom, gaining knowledge and application of that knowledge into wisdom, is just time. It just takes time. If you're 11, you need time to grow into wisdom, even if you're going to learn it and borrow it off other people. But sadly, the cure for the fool, in terms of not choosing the wise thing over and over again, is tragedy. He wanted to sing the song down the front. I could feel it. I could feel that. That was in your head, wasn't it? That is a tragedy. This is what Solomon basically says. That the fool has to learn the hard way. The fool has to learn the hard way because you can't teach a fool because they already know. And I don't mean they know the right thing and choose the wrong thing. You can say 1 + 1 = 2 and they know, I just don't care. Because information isn't going to help. The cure, sadly, is tragedy. And sadly, I've had countless encounters doing what I do, leading the church, and even before that when I was a school teacher, countless encounters over the years of people doing something foolish. And you try and reason it out with them, or they understand they're in a bit of a pickle right now, or not sure what to do going forward, and they give you some examples of here's my options going forward, and you're like, that one is stupid, don't do that, and they do it anyway, and everyone else knows and they know, and it's tragic because tragedy hits them months later. And you've all got people in your world, and maybe it's happened in your world multiple times, where you choose the unwise thing to do and you're foolish over and over again. And at some point in the future, you end up with devastation all around you. And so the only cure for it, often with a foolish person, is being in devastation. And some people think, I've dealt with, having led a youth group in the past as well. And some of them know they're heading down a bad road, and they just, the thing that comes out of someone's face might be, I'm just hurting myself. It doesn't matter. I can do the foolish thing. It's just me. You get on with your life. I'll get on with my life. I can do the foolish thing over and over again. It doesn't impact your life. It doesn't impact anyone else's life. Let me do what I want. I'm going to do what I want, even though I know the consequences of it. I'm not hurting anybody else. And for me, our survey says, I don't think that's true. I think that's 100% wrong. Proverbs 13:20, Solomon wrote this, that walk with the wise and become wise. That sounds great. For a companion of fools suffers harm. A companion of fools suffers harm. So if you're foolish, or someone in your world is foolish over and over again, and you're a companion of that, you will get at some point caught up in that devastation. And if you are foolish in an area over and over again, at some point, time will tell, you'll end up devastating someone else's world. They will suffer harm for being a companion of you. So your foolish decisions, and we know this, when we've made foolish decisions, it hasn't just affected us, it's affected everybody else in our circle. Eventually, if you reject wisdom and you're being foolish, you will hurt someone. And that's why we freak out as parents, more so in my household, more so mum than dad, about our kids' friends. Well, you want your kids' friends, you don't want them to be a fool, do you? You don't want them to be, this is the general rule, I think, and this might be sexist, I'll just get it out there, that most dads hate all other kids. He's laughing in the room, that means it's true. We put up with our own, no, I'm joking. We love our own, we tend not to, but mums often, they'll have, I like that one. Steph will say it all the time, there's this little boy, this little girl, oh, they're lovely, I wish they'd get friends. Like, they've only said hello, what do you like about, I don't even understand, what do you like about? They're polite. They're polite, they're so polite. But what we mean is, what we're really digging at, even as dads, what we want is, we want our friends' kids to not be fools. We want them to be wise and our kid to be able to learn and glean off them and be safe and secure and grow up in a healthy, good way. We don't want our kids to have foolish friends. Why? Because we know that the companions of fools suffer harm. That if there's a fool there, the people around them will be sucked into that and will suffer harm for it. And it's no different with us as adults. You know, if a fool won't take care of themselves, what makes you think they'll take care of anybody else? Because the fool says, I know, but I don't care. And perhaps we've been there in different areas of our life or in different times. But the last one that Solomon brings out in Proverbs, not the simple, not the fool, but the mocker. And I don't mean like a coffee derivative. The mocker, or some translations say the scoffer, a scoffer. And that's not someone who eats cake fast. But what it is a fool on steroids. That's what it is. It's a fool on steroids. Not only do they know the difference between right and wrong, like we have and made poor choices, not only do they know the difference between right and wrong or wise and unwise, these are the people who mock those who choose to do the wise thing. And I can tell you, I used to be that person all the time, especially in high school. You know, I'd see, like, I pre-Christian, I was a bit, not a bad boy, I just got caught up and swept up in the tide of culture. That's my excuse. And so I would drink a lot, I was in relationships, all that sort of stuff, bit of fighting, all that sort of thing, and often, do I go down this route? Yeah, but I would look at other people who are making good choices, even choices I know are wise, and I would mock them for it. And I like, what, you don't get drunk and do stupid things? Ha 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 ha! And honestly, that was the core of me. I would look at people who made wise choices. Oh, you're spending your money wisely. What an idiot. An idiot? That doesn't even make any sense. You're making wise choices. And I think as a mocker, we mock people who make wise choices. Don't be so boring. You're such a square. The mocker. They know the difference between right and wrong. They know the difference between wise and unwise, but they mock those even who choose to do the wise thing with a mocking attitude, full of criticism and cynicism. And if you are this person, if you're by default in an area in this, you're this sort of person, not only do you not care what I'm saying, you've already decided what you'd like to say to me in response. Solomon wrote in Proverbs 9, 7, 8, it says this, whoever corrects a mocker invites insults. You try and correct a mocker. They know they're wrong. You even correct them. They know they're wrong. You know they're wrong. Everyone in the room knows they're wrong. You're correcting them. And what it says is you invite insults. They don't accept it. They reject it. They push it back in your face. They'll even mock you for even being right. It says whoever rebukes the wicked incurs abuse. Do not rebuke mockers. They will hate you. So Solomon's like, there's the simple that they might be able to borrow wisdom from you. You got the fools who already know you can give them some advice and they will not take it because they just don't care. But the mocker, you correct them, you want to give them wisdom, they'll hate you for it. They will be abusive. You're inviting insults from them. And I have been this person in the past, and maybe I can dip into it every now and again until my wife tells me. And Solomon said that there's little chance for these people. They're mockers. It's almost impossible to affect them. Almost impossible. So for time's sake, because I'm running out, if we're to summarize Proverbs, if we're to summarize the whole of Proverbs, really what it says is that if you correct the simple, they won't get you. Huh? What do you mean? You try and correct them, they don't understand, they're not naive, they're not bad, sorry, they're not immoral, they just don't understand what you're talking about. If you correct a fool, then they will ignore you. But if you correct a mocker, they will hate you. But it says if you correct the wise, I love this, and they will thank you. If you correct the wise, what does that mean? Hold on, correct the what? Can you correct the wise? Yeah, sure you can. A wise person isn't someone who knows everything and is perfect in their wisdom. When you correct the wise person who is in error in an area, they will thank you for it and be like, thank you for bringing me into truth. They will thank you for it. Why? Because they seek wisdom and understanding. Because the wise know what they don't know. That's what separates the wise, I believe, is the wise understand what they don't understand. And they're not afraid to learn from people who do know, even if those people who do know are simple. The wise don't let their arrogance stop them from being made better, being made wiser. Because eventually the simple, the fool, the mocker, they all need wisdom. And at some point, we all need wisdom. At some point, we all need wisdom, even if we're being foolish in an area over and over again. But Solomon says this, and it's a warning that the problem is if we sit in that seat too long, if we sit in the seat of the simple, or we sit in the seat of the fool, or we sit in the seat of the mocker too long, it'll be so long that we don't even recognize wisdom. And right at the beginning of the book of Proverbs, Solomon, he personifies wisdom. He tells a story, if you like, of as wisdom as a woman going around the street saying, who wants me? That sounds a bit ominous, but it's personifying wisdom going around the street saying, who would like me? Calling out to people, who would like me? And Solomon's saying, throughout Proverbs, I've observed the simple people, I've observed the fool, I've observed the mocker and the wise, and here is the outcome. So Proverbs chapter 1, and we'll read from verse 20. I'm already over time. And this is not God talking, this is wisdom talking, okay? Even though it's in the Bible, the story is wisdom talking. It says this, Proverbs 1, verse 20, read from the NIV, it says this, out in the open, wisdom calls aloud. She raises her voice in the public square, on top of the wall. She cries out. At the city gate, she makes her speech. Check this. How long will you who are simple love your simple ways? How long will mockers delight in mockery and fools hate knowledge? Repent and rebuke. Repent at my rebuke. Then I will pour out my thoughts to you. I'll make known to you my teaching. And so Solomon's saying here that wisdom is available to everyone. And in this story, wisdom is warning you. It's warning me. It's warning the readers. Eventually, you're going to need me. But if you wait too long, it's going to be too late. From verse 24, it says this. But since you refuse to listen when I call. Anyone done that? Refuse to listen to wisdom when it calls. When you know. But since you refuse to listen when I call, and no one pays attention when I stretch out my hand, since you disregard all my advice and do not accept my rebuke, check this out, I in turn will laugh when disaster strikes you. I will mock you when calamity overtakes you. When calamity overtakes you like a storm, when disaster sweeps over you like a whirlwind, when distress and trouble overwhelm you. And this is one of the hardest things, I think, about leading a church with the sort of the pastoral aspect, or working in a school with a pastoral side of that, is you can sit and listen to people and they're in places that they're far from where they want to be. Like they're just in a completely different postcode than what they thought their life was going to be. Because they waited too long. They waited too long to listen to wisdom, to repent and hear the rebuke of wisdom in their own soul. And what often you have to say to people, and you've probably got friends who are like it, is like what you want or what you wanted, you will never have now. You can't have that thing now in this life anyway. Because you're going to have to face the ongoing consequences of your decisions, of your foolish behaviors, because you stayed there too long. And you even knew it at the time. And now you're calling out for help. Let's read from verse 28, jump down a bit. It says, then they will call to me. See, tragedy's hit. Then they will call to me. Everything's falling apart. Then they call out. Then they will call to me, but I will not answer. They will look for me, but will not find me, since they hated knowledge and did not choose to fear the Lord. And we'll come into that in future weeks. Since they do not accept my advice and spurn by my rebuke, they will eat the fruit of their ways and be filled with the fruit of their schemes. For their waywardness of the simple will kill them, and the complacencies of fools will destroy them. And so what Solomon's saying here is that you reap what you sow. If you sow and you sow and you sow and you sow unwise, foolish things, that is, you will reap what you've sown. When you start reaping, no counselor, no pastor, no teacher, no friend, no prayer can stop you reaping what you've sown. So sadly, there'll be people in life who will never get to where they want to be because they rejected wisdom for too long. Because they wouldn't accept that mum was right, or dad was right, or your friend was right, or the teacher was right, or your leader was right, or your wife was right, or your husband was right, or even that God and his teachings in Scripture were right and wise. But, and it is a big but, it says in verse 33, but whoever listens to me, this is wisdom, not to me, whoever listens to wisdom, whoever listens to me will live in safety and be at ease without fear of harm. So Proverbs 1:33 is saying, I'm giving you another chance. I'm giving this last shout out to put away the foolish. If you're simple, to seek and borrow wisdom. If you're a mocker, to repent from that. Giving you one more chance to listen. And this is why we should, in every area of our life, ask the question, when we can, what is the wise thing for me to do? And if you are a mocker of the people who do wise things, then that might mean that we actually have to humble ourselves. If we're fools, we might have to start caring about the outcomes of our decisions, because it does affect those around us. And if we are simple in an area, we need to gain wisdom and borrow wisdom from other people, because all we have to do is ask. And if you do, then without question, we will find wisdom. And we'll stop there. We'll pick this up next week. Let's pray.